He and his acolytes have been extremely ingenious in playing the court system in ways that delay any final conclusion almost indefinitely and allow the Trump administration to continue its perverse intrusions into the country's environmental research and regulation.
Now, we know that Donald Trump is currently having that conversation with European leaders, but the US president is also trying to secure, it would seem, another sort of legacy, slashing the rules protecting the environment, ending the monitoring of greenhouse gases, and also ending climate commitments. Now, his Environmental Protection Agency kicked off the year with what it called the biggest deregulatory action in US history. But what does that mean, and what impact will this all have on our planet? Let's talk now to a former Obama science advisor, Dr John Holdren. He is now a research professor at Harvard University. Dr Holdren, good afternoon from us in the UK. First of all, if you were asked to sum up the Trump regime, the Trump administration's attitude to the environment, how would you describe it?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I think the quick description is that Trump and his acolytes don't know anything about environmental damage, about climate change, about toxic substances, about the harm to well-being that all those phenomena are causing. Secondly, they're proud of not knowing anything. And third, they don't want anyone else to know anything. So they have been systematically dismantling the government's support for research on environmental problems of all kinds, above all climate change and toxic substances. They have been dismantling government's capacity not just to understand, but to regulate these problems. The latest instance of that, the one that the EPA administrator has described as the greatest deregulatory action in U.S. history, is an attempt to discard, to throw overboard the endangerment finding of 2009, which is the finding supported by the U.S. Supreme Court at the time that gives the Environmental Protection Agency the power to regulate heat trapping emissions, greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles and industry. This would be a catastrophic of progress that has occurred
Right.
largely up until now, and it would have immense adverse impacts ultimately on public health, on the U.S. economy, and on the world, because greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, of course, don't care where they came from.
No.
More coming from the United States will harm everybody.
How is it possible that the Trump administration can do this? Are there not laws restricting them?
There are laws restricting them, and in the end, one has to rely on some combination of the courts, the Congress, and the voters to rein Trump in on these matters. He has unfortunately already demonstrated a willingness to either circumvent or ignore court orders. He and his acolytes have been extremely ingenious in playing the court system in ways that delay any final conclusion almost indefinitely and allow the Trump administration to continue its perverse intrusions into the country's environmental research and regulation while the court proceedings drag on. Counting on the voters, of course, is a long-term issue. Many people in the United States say, well, we just have to wait for the 2026 midterm elections, and then perhaps we can reverse the dominance of Republicans in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then expect the Congress to rein Trump in. My view is that we can't afford to wait till 2026. The damage being done in the meantime is too great for us to have the luxury of waiting for those elections. And what we really need is for about half a dozen Republican senators and half a dozen Republican members of the House of Representatives to grow a spine in the meantime, to decide that their loyalty to the Constitution of the United States and to the interests of their constituents should outweigh their fear of Trump.
It's quite bizarre to me. I'm sure you have seen this, that earlier this week, the Energy Department posted on X a post about coal, identifying coal, by the way, as female, which is in itself quite bizarre, and saying she's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. And this is alongside a lump of coal. Can you explain that?
Uh, it's very hard to explain some of the actions that emanate from the Trump administration on these matters. What coal really is the dirtiest form of energy that we have and that we have used historically in very large quantities to immense consequences in the environment and for public health. Uh, the goal of our energy policy should be to reduce our dependence on coal as rapidly as possible, both in this country and around the world. The United States was on a trajectory to doing exactly that, and the Trump administration is now trying to revive the properly faltering coal industry. I'm not quite sure what the strategy is in terms of calling coal a female, but it's simply another preposterous misrepresentation of reality by the Trump administration in the attempt to advance what is really a very destructive agenda.
Really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Former Obama science advisor, Dr. John Holdren. He is now a professor, a research professor at Harvard.
And 17th Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin.
Well, thank you to Aaron. It's great to be here with all of you for what is a very big deal. It's a very big announcement. Today's announcement would amount to the largest deregulatory action in the history of the United States. Do you really think that the EPA should be coming up with all of the many mental leaps that went into this endangerment finding that took a section of the Clean Air Act 202 and put an extremely creative and unprecedented spin on it? See, some would like to simplify what the endangerment finding is by just saying carbon dioxide endangers human health and the environment and welfare. Now, that is a very oversimplified statement to the point that it's just not accurate when you look at what the endangerment finding did. And then they say that climate change endangers public health and welfare. Now, if you're following all of the mental leaps there, they then rely on assumptions that ended up not being true. They ended up making predictions about the science that in many respects were not just pessimistic, they turned out not to be true. And for the first time ever, the EPA, in an effort to combat global climate change, end up deciding to reach this endangerment finding and then put forward trillions of dollars of regulations that hit mobile sources, stationary sources, airplanes. Now, where did this power come from, one might ask? Well, some don't want to ask. And I'll tell you, when the Supreme Court ruled in Loper Bright, overturning the Chevron doctrine and making it clear that I, as administrator of EPA, that agencies of this federal government do not have the ability to just creatively come up with our own law. We do not have that power on our own to decide as an agency that we are going to combat global climate change because we give ourselves that power. We want to hear from the American public to finalize a regulation that not only proposes to rescind the endangerment finding, but all greenhouse gas emissions that followed on light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. it is important for us to understand that what the EPA did was many mental leaps in trying to creatively interpret Section 202 of the Clean Air Act. Our titles like being a husband or a title like being a father. Selfless service is about all of us being here today for this cause.